This is Jane. She's a senior developer at a mid-sized tech company. And today she's onboarding a new hire, Marcus. She sends him the codebase, clean logic, solid architecture. Then she waits. 3 hours later, Marcus is still on file 1. The code is fine, but there's no context, no reasoning, nothing explaining why any of it was built the way it was. This happens more than it should. More than half of employees waste time digging through internal docs just to piece together context on work they're supposed to already understand. Marcus is just the latest. So, in this video, we'll take you through a 5-step framework for writing code documentation that actually holds up, so the next time a new hire like Marcus doesn't have to start from scratch. The first step is to know your audience and define your scope. The first thing Marcus needed was documentation written for someone at his level, on his team, at that stage of the project. So, before you write a single word, it's important to know who's reading it. For a developer audience, documentation should go deep with algorithms, data structures, and the reasoning behind choices. For a non-technical stakeholder, it pulls back entirely with plain language, real examples, and no assumed knowledge. And scope matters just as much. A small internal library might only need a README and some inline comments. A large-scale application needs developer guides, API references, and full tutorials. Getting this wrong at the start means rewriting everything later. Now, knowing who the documentation is for only solves half the problem, so the next step is to use a standardized structure. Every file Marcus opened looked different. Some had summaries at the top, some at the bottom, and some had none at all. Inconsistency is what makes documentation exhausting to use even when it exists. The fix is simple. Pick a structure and commit to it across every module, every function, and every guide. Readers should be able to open any document in the project and immediately know where everything is. For teams building and maintaining docs together, the right tool makes this easier to enforce. Nested pages keep sections organized, contributors can format content consistently, and real-time collaborative editing means the whole team is always working from the same structure. No more 6 versions of the same guide living in 6 different places. Up next is to write descriptive titles and clear explanations. Because structure gets people into the documentation, but labels get them to what they need. Titles are signposts. When someone is navigating documentation under pressure, they're scanning, not reading. This is why a section titled Handling Issues won't give the developer a glance at error behavior or failure states when he looks for it, but error handling would. For every function, class, or module in the codebase, there should be a short high-level summary: what it does, what problem it solves, what to expect from it. That connected structure is what turns scattered files into a knowledge base people can actually rely on. All right, the 4th step is to highlight error management. It's week 3 and the system throws an exception. Marcus stares at it for an hour. There's no record anywhere of what triggered it, how the software responds, or where to even start. That's the DAP error documentation exists to fill. For every known exception a codebase can throw, documentation should cover what triggers it, how the software responds, what the end user encounters, and what the resolution path looks like. And concrete examples help so that the developer has documentation covering the full picture, expected behavior, precise technical detail, and the failure states. But here's what happens to even the best documentation if nobody maintains it. It becomes the thing everyone stops trusting. So, our final step is to keep the documentation updated and close the feedback loop. A year later, Marcus is now a senior member of the team, and he's sitting down to write the documentation he wished had existed when he started. His team doesn't treat it as an afterthought at the end of a release cycle anymore. It's tied directly into the sprint process, which means every change to the codebase triggers a documentation review as part of the workflow. And they regularly share it with the people using it, asking what's still unclear, what's missing, and what isn't holding up. That feedback is what makes documentation genuinely useful rather than just technically complete. But even with the best process in place, the real challenge is keeping everything in one place. Documentation, tasks, feedback, and the work itself all tend to drift into different tools, and things start slipping through the cracks. That's the problem ClickUp solves. As the world's first converged AI workspace, it brings everything together: docs, tasks, collaboration, so documentation lives right where the work is happening, not in a separate tool nobody remembers to update. And built into that workspace is ClickUp Brain, a context-aware AI assistant that fits naturally into this process. Use it to draft documentation, summarize complex sections, or search across everything in your workspace instantly. Because it understands your project, what it produces is actually relevant, not generic. So that's what good documentation really is. It's what you build today so that every developer who comes next can walk in and just get to work. When Marcus started, he spent 3 days working on a 3-hour task. A year later, he's the one making sure nobody else does. These 5 steps are the difference between a team that's constantly losing time to confusion and one that isn't. So have you ever been a Marcus? Tell us how long it actually took you to get up to speed. Let us know in the comments below. And if you want to test the system Marcus used, sign up for free at clickup.com.